Muy buenos días. Estamos esperando que todos ingresen de la sala de espera y empezaremos muy pronto.
Okay, thank you for joining us. This workshop will be available in Spanish. In a moment, a globe icon will appear on your toolbar. Please choose your language. If you're listening in English, please do not mute original audio. If you have any issues accessing the interpretation, please let us know in the chat.
Muy buenos días. Esta sesión tendrá interpretación en español. En un momento aparecerá un globo terráqueo en la parte inferior de su barra de herramientas. Haga clic en el icono para poder seleccionar el español como idioma para que pueda escuchar. Si está escuchando en inglés, no silencie el audio original. Y si tiene algún problema, no dude en contactarnos a través del chat.
Okay. So thanks again for joining us. This session is Land Access and the Farm Bill, how storytelling and advocacy can help win the radical policy change young farmers need to succeed. I'm Katie, and I will be helping to make sure everything goes smoothly today. We also have Jessica on tech, so let us know if you have any questions around any tech concerns. We can help you out with those. Just a couple of reminders before we get started. Please do remain muted with your video off during the presentations. We have enabled closed captioning. It's automated, so not perfect, but if that is helpful for you, you should be able to enable that in your toolbar. And this workshop is being recorded. It'll be shared on the conference website and mobile app shortly after the presentation. Feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself and ask questions, and there'll be some opportunities for Q&A throughout the presentation. Our winter conference wouldn't be possible without the support of our generous sponsors. NOFA New York would like to specifically thank our app sponsors, Hudson Valley Farm Hub and Honey Dog Farm. To learn more about these organizations and their work, please visit them in the marketplace or online. All right, and I'm pleased to introduce our panelists for today. We have Laura Colligan of Dirt Rich Farm, Charles Madlock of Golden Currat Farms and the National Young Farmers Coalition, Stony Thompson of New Tradition Farmland and National Young Farmers Coalition, and Erica Rincon of National Young Farmers Coalition.
Should I start?
Yeah, turn it over to you. Sorry, I should have said that. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Stony, you can go ahead and start sharing. Hola and bienvenidos a todos. Today we're here to talk a little bit about our land campaign and the Farm Bill, and also get a little bit of hands-on experience of what narrative advocacy looks like when it comes to advocating around the changes that we want to see for the 2023 Farm Bill. So Stony, if you could go ahead and scroll up to slide 1, we'll start at the first slide. Perfect. Okay, second slide. So the first thing that we want to talk about just super briefly is a little bit of history of the Farm Bill. I know some folks already got a Farm Bill 101 earlier within the conference. So we'll just quickly look at a little bit of what this Farm Bill means and covers. So the first Farm Bill was passed in 1933 during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. And it was designed at a time when white supremacy and a lot of reactionary stuff was happening in the country. We acknowledge that a lot of those, the vestiges of those policies remain today. The Farm Bill is an omnibus bill, meaning that it's a whole bunch of different programs rolled into one. And as you can see in my pie chart here, some of the main funding goes to nutrition programs, crop insurance, commodities programs, conservation, and then like this tiny little sliver down here, which is other. Today, the Farm Bill is for a number that I've never said aloud before because it's so large, $428 billion, and it gets reauthorized every 5 years. And we hope that this coming Farm Bill, we will see a better Farm Bill that is more equitable in resource, more equitable, and that it helps to bring more resources to farmers, addresses climate action, and also is committed to the well-being of our communities. Next slide. So I mentioned our land campaign, which is called 1 Million Acres. And we arrived at this idea that land access should be the #1 focus for young farmers in the 2023 Farm Bill. Really, after tremendous amount of feedback from young farmers across the country, every 5 years we do a national survey. And this past year in 2022, we had one of the largest surveys to date. We had over 10,000 people responding to it. And overwhelmingly, farmers said that access to land and capital was the #1 issue that they were facing. So we hope to see that this upcoming Farm Bill addresses that issue. We're calling on Congress to invest $2.5 billion over the next 10 years to facilitate equitable access to 1 million acres of land for the next generation of farmers. Next slide. And we hope that this land transition is an equitable one. I'm sure a lot of people have heard the statistic that right now 98% of farmland is owned by white individuals in the US. Young Farmers does not believe that policy can be created in a vacuum or colorblind. It needs to be designed with intention to facilitate equity. And so we want policies that create opportunities for BIPOC growers who are stewarding land, leading climate resilient agriculture, and feeding their communities by funding programs that are land-based. Next slide. So how do we get there? We've said that we want $2.5 billion to go towards the transition of 1 million acres. The next few slides will outline our policy recommendations that we are bringing to our members of Congress in DC. We're working with different administrative positions in order to be able to see these recommendations come into fruition in the next Farm Bill. So one of the main things that we're pushing for is an investment in community-led projects that create secure, affordable land and access opportunities. Prior to this, there has been very few mechanisms within the Farm Bill that allow for community-led organizations to be able to access land directly. So in 2022, we saw the Access to Land, Markets, and Capital program that was launched, and we thought that was a really fantastic opportunity for farmers and community-led organizations to be able to to be able to purchase or lease land. And we would love to see a program like that codified in the next Farm Bill. Next slide. We'd also love to see a new office established that's going to bring coordination across the initiatives that deal with land access. So right now there's not one office that within the USDA that would be coordinating all of these different programs that are kind of scattered across different agencies and different offices, similar to how the 2018 Farm Bill created the beginning farmer and rancher coordinator position. We would love to see somebody who's there, who we can be working with between Farm Bill years so that we can be making sure that these programs for land access are supporting the needs of young farmers and are actually getting young farmers onto land. Next slide. We'd also love to see farmers have improved access to credit. So one of those pieces would be to create a pre-approval process for FSA loans so that farmers can be more competitive in the real estate market. Right now, it seems like In so many areas, farmers are competing against non-farmers and folks with a lot of money who are coming in and buying up farmland, and a pre-approval letter would definitely be a step forward in making them more competitive. We want to make sure that the loan limits are indexing to land values, and also ensure debt relief, expand funding for some other programs that are included in the Farm Bill, and make sure that farmers in general are having an easy time accessing FSA programs and are aware of those programs as well. Next slide. Facilitate voluntary community-led farmland protection that keeps land in the hands of growers. This one, I think we would love to be able to see that conservation funding is keeping farmland in the hands of farmers and allowing farmers to do what they need with that land. The easement program should be expanded to include funding for long-term leases, lease to own, and other ways that farmland is accessed without outright purchasing it. Next slide. So this one, invest in incentivizing farm transition and preventing land loss in communities of color. We want to make sure that land is not being lost in the hands of BIPOC farmers at the moment of transition. So this is to ensure that we promote equity at the point of transition. Currently, the system is set up to incentivize older farmers to sell to the highest bidder, but we would like to see a mechanism put in place that would prevent further land loss to communities of color and incentivize equitable land transition. Next one. Ensure the accessibility and accountability of USDA programs centering young farmers of color and increasing access to the next generations of farmers as a whole. Ensure that the USDA land-related programs are accessible to all young farmers by specifying eligibility for collective, cooperative, and communal non-family entities. Implement robust reporting requirements to measure program reach, effectiveness, and equity outcomes, and provide continued funding for cooperative agreements with community-based organizations. Next one. So I know that was really fast, and I'm sure that there are some questions. Please feel free to put them in the chat or unmute and ask. I will try my best to answer them. But really the best way to learn more about our land program is to go to youngfarmers.org/land. We have a ton of great resources, including our full platform, a lot of background material, our 2022 land, our 2022 report from the survey that we did, and tons more where you can find all kinds of information about the campaign and also how you can get involved in it. Are there any questions? We'll have another opportunity towards the end here. So if you do not have any questions, maybe one will pop up towards the end. Okay, so 1 million acres, how do we get there? Of course, the most important part of how we are going to accomplish this great feat of getting these changes implemented in the 2023 Farm Bill is through the voices of farmers. So we have been running a land fellowship for the last year, which is comprised of 100 farmers from across the US. This is a picture of our Northeast cohort when we met up in Philadelphia a couple of months ago. And these farmers, 3 of them are here today to share their stories. But next month, we'll be going to Washington, D.C. to be advocating around some of the recommendations I just outlined. And we have been doing lots of different advocacy opportunities throughout the last year. So some of our fellows have been meeting with members of Congress at in-district meetings. They've written op-eds that have been published at local news outlets across their regions, and have just been doing tons of work in their communities to spread the word. So we want to hear from them today and hear also examples of their stories because I hope they're inspiring to you and make you feel like you want to share your story. So next slide, please. We're now going to hear from 3 of our land fellows. First one up is Laura Colligan from Dirt Rich Farms. Then we'll hear from Charles Madlock of Golden Carrot Farms, and then Stony Thompson of New Tradition Farm. And Stony, you can stop sharing while you're all speaking so that we can hear Laura and see her.
Hey, I'm Laura Colligan. In addition to being a land advocacy fellow with the National Young Farmers Coalition, I'm a former member of the No for New York board, and most importantly, I am a certified organic vegetable farmer. My farm is called Dirt Rich Farm, and it's located in Springville, New York, about 40 minutes south of Buffalo. Like most small-scale organic vegetable farmers, I didn't grow up on a farm. I got interested in organic agriculture as a teenager, though, and once I was done with high school, I chose to intern on organic vegetable farms instead of going to college. After 3 years of interning on farms in Michigan, Vermont, and the Hudson Valley, I returned to Western New York, where I'd grown up, to start my own farm in 2015. For the first 5 years of my farm's existence, I used a little over half an acre of my parents' side yard to grow my vegetables. After that, I relocated my farm to land I'd bought about half an hour away. Today, my husband and I make a living from growing about 1.5 acres of vegetables for a 150-member CSA, a farmer's market, a self-serve farm stand, and sale to local businesses. Back when I was interning, I met and worked with a lot of other young people who dreamed of starting a farm of their own. But about a decade later, so few of them are still in agriculture. The reason that I have my own farm and I'm making a living from farming, and they aren't, isn't because I'm the best or hardest working farmer. The reason I've been able to succeed is because I have the kind of access to land and capital that few can dream of. In addition to letting me farm their side yard for 5 years, my parents also lent me about $6,000 when I started farming, which I repaid with the money that I made from my first growing season. When it came time to buy farmland, my dad co-signed the loan, and my parents gave me the money for the down payment and covered the closing costs. Because my farm was vacant land without any buildings, 2 years later, when I bought a house and barn near my farmland, my parents did the same thing again: down payment, closing costs, and my dad co-signing the loan. I'm responsible for making the monthly payments for the mortgage for the land and the house. My parents also gave me the money to buy a tractor and my propagation greenhouse. In all, they gave me about $60,000, about 2/3 of which came from my unused college fund. We're at a juncture in this country when it comes to farming. We can either accede to the increasing consolidation of farmland into fewer and fewer hands, and to increasing amounts of our farmland being owned not by farmers, but by investors, foreign and domestic, or start actually focusing on what it would take to increase the number of small-scale farms. Like most of you, I'd like to see more smaller-scale farms, especially organic ones. But if we're counting on middle-class kids with unused college funds to be the future of our movement, there aren't going to be many of us in a few decades. The issue of the amount of money necessary to start a farm seems even more pressing when you take into account that white families with the same levels of income have far more wealth than Black families and other families of color, and 96% of farmland is owned by white people, so BIPOC farmers are far less likely to inherit farmland or get family financial help when starting a farm. All of this is why I chose to be part of the Land Advocacy Fellowship, for the opportunity to do my part to ensure there's a better focus on land access in the next Farm Bill. The part of the NYFC land access policy goals that I find the most meaningful is trying to make the FSA lending process work better for a new generation of farmers. So far, the highlight of the fellowship for me was when my congressman visited my farm. It was just me, the congressman, and one of his staffers, and I was really nervous about pulling it off by myself, especially because it was only mid-April, so there wasn't even that much going on my farm yet. But I showed him around while telling him the story of how I became a farmer and came to farm that particular piece of land. He asked a lot of good questions along the way, and this discussion naturally segued into policy and how it could help more young farmers access land. It ended up being a really positive, empowering experience for me. I felt like if I could meet with my congressman alone, I could do anything when it comes to policy. Still, policy work is hard for me because I want to see big, dramatic changes quickly. So bracing myself for the incremental progress and compromise with the powers that be is difficult. But I know that the Farm Bill is so big that even when we just get the crumbs, those crumbs can seem pretty big to small farmers like me. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Charles Matlock. I'm located in Syracuse, New York, and I'm currently the Urban Agriculture Coordinator for RISE. RISE stands for Refugee Immigrant Self-Empowerment, and I work with New Americans. I currently maintain 3 community gardens, and this last year I just built a new community garden. And I want to say with the new community garden, what I'm doing different than the other 2 previous community gardens is I built a pantry box. I built a pantry box so that we could better interact with the community around our community gardens. But kind of sort of how I got into farming, how I got into farming. So beginning of the pandemic, I was kind of sort of working a dead-end job, and my brother called my phone one day telling me I wasn't doing enough with my life. And I figured the craziest thing I could do to kind of sort of show him I could do anything I wanted to do was to become a farmer. And it's kind of sort of where my journey started. And one of the first things I did as a new farmer was I applied for a BIPOC beginner farmer training program in Ithaca, New York. And it was an amazing program. And what they did that I really appreciated was, instead of me having to go out and meet farmers and try to learn about farming, they brought 20 to 30 different farmers to me. And the farmers that I met just kind of sort of shared their experiences, their trials and tribulations, and how they got into farming. And I want to say the biggest takeaway I took from that program and talking to those farmers was what I like to tell people is, so if you can manage to get the money for the land, you can figure out the money for the equipment. And even if you have a perfect growth season, there's still no access to market. And I feel like that's the biggest problem that farmers face, like they have no access to market. So I joined the National Young Farmers Land Advocacy Fellowship to advocate for subsidized CSA shares. And I want to say, being a part of the Young Farmers Program and kind of sort of having the opportunity to advocate for this particular thing has been an amazing experience. I talked to Congressman Cato office, and one of the things I talked to him about was how big box stores control the prices in grocery stores. And me having a conversation with him, he pretty much told me, like, it kind of sort of is what it is, and there's nothing that he could do about that. So the solution that I did offer him, was like subsidized CSA shares. And he was kind of like, he liked the idea, but like, it's a work in progress. I had another meeting with Senator Gillibrand, agriculture person, in-person meeting at a forum. And like, I want to say that was a good meeting. And she was all ears in that meeting. But I want to say, I guess the biggest thing I took away from that meeting was being around a farmer who had been farming for 8 years, and she was saying that how she'd been farming for 8 years, and like she's afraid she's gonna lose everything she worked for because she's barely breaking even. And I told the lady, like, I'm new to farming, like, you know, and with me being new to farming, like, is my future 8 years from now, I'm gonna still be struggling trying to make ends meet, being a farmer. And so no real answers did I get from that meeting, but it was a good meeting. And I want to say, with that, I guess with that being said, me preparing to go to DC and like advocate for subsidized CSA shares, like what I like to tell people, like this isn't something that I just kind of sort of came up with off the top of my head. And when I talk to people about subsidized CSA shares, I tell them about two programs currently running in the state of New York, Healthy Food for All in Ithaca and Vines in Binghamton. And they have have a two-tier goal. The first goal is to make sure anybody who wants a box can get a box. And the second goal is to make sure that farmers get paid fair market value. And I want to say, I guess the downside to that is like Healthy Food for All had to raise $200,000 last year in order to make their program work. So money is needed. And I want to say, talking to the people from Healthy Food for All, like the biggest, the most of their time is spent fundraising, trying to make ends meet. So my ideal of the government in some form or fashion subsidized CSA shares, everybody like the ideal, plus it keeps money and funds in the local economy, keeping the local economy moving. And I want to say, I even got into the point how I can actually maybe get this paid for. So I want to say in the Farm Bill, big farms, there's no set limit how long $1 million farms can receive taxpayer funded assistance. And like my idea is possibly putting caps on how long $1 million farms can receive subsidies and putting that money towards local CSA programs to meet the needs of the local farmers and to meet the needs of people in food insecure areas. So I'm like really excited about by going to DC with the young farmers and advocate for these things, and kind of sort of like, yep, at this current time, I'm building a team and a campaign. So that way, even if I can't get this ideal put into this farm bill, I'm most definitely shooting for the next farm bill. But other than that, like I enjoy this experience. I enjoy meeting new farmers, but like farming is hard, and like I'm not trying to, I guess, drown in debt to help people, because that's like the opposite of the mission that we should be doing. But yeah, that's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Stony Thompson. I apologize, my voice is kind of shot. I had a birthday party last night and I involved a lot of singing, so I'm gonna try my best to speak. I am a vegetable grower in Vermont, about 20 minutes outside of Burlington. I grow on about an acre of leased land, and I sell at we sell at the kind of local farmers market, the Burlington Farmers Market. I have about a 30-member CSA, sell to a food bank, and a couple restaurants and kind of other wholesale type accounts. And I, after a few years of apprenticing and working on other farms, I kind of decided to take the plunge after kind of going through a farm training program. And all I want to do is kind of pour my blood, sweat, and tears into growing food for my community in a good way. But that has proven incredibly difficult because of kind of what we're talking about with land access. So I leased this acre from a farmer I found through Vermont LandLink, or from a landowner I found through Vermont LandLink. And we agreed at first to, kind of do a trial year together, and that was going well. And they said, well, we'd like to sign a longer term lease with you. And I was so happy about that because, having that security obviously would allow me to really move forward with developing my business. And I wrote up that lease, sent it to them, and heard back from them that actually they were not willing to sign the lease because they plan to sell the property. And so that was, after I had kind of put a lot into soil and kind of some infrastructure that I maybe would not have put into had I known it was a short-term lease. So it was a huge blow. But then I thought, well, maybe I could buy the property. They bought it, it's 20 acres. They bought it for $245,000 about 6-7 years ago now. And they're selling it for $1.2 million. And so that clearly, like, that was not an option for me. So this was really frustrating to me because it felt like, here I am, it's this like land-based business, and like I've lost the land base. I invested about $30,000 into, infrastructure, soil, everything that first, year. So around that time, I found out about the Young Farmers Coalition and the Land Access Fellowship, and I thought this would be a great way for me to kind of an outlet for my frustrations, and maybe turning this experience into a kind of power for advocacy for something to change, like specifically around kind of what Laura was saying about FSA lending and making it making that process for land purchase easier, as well as kind of changing some of the you have to be related by blood or marriage, which kind of to be eligible for an FSA loan. So I think there's a lot that needs to change, and so far this experience has been really wonderful. Honestly, the best part has been meeting other farmers, hearing their stories, realizing we're not alone. I, along with all of the other fellows, we wrote our op-eds for local publications, and that was a really great experience for me to kind of lay it out. And I got a tremendous response from other farmers, community members, and also the executive director of the USDA emailed me, and we just had a meeting this last week that was really great, and he was incredibly receptive to some of these changes. Obviously, he cannot lobby members of Congress to make these changes, but kind of knowing that he's receptive to them and would be kind of willing to implement these changes with gusto is a nice thought. And one of Bernie Sanders' staff members and the director of land access in Vermont Land Trust also reached out after reading that article and want to have a meeting in February. So it kind of gave me a renewed sense of hope for, I guess, just the process of advocating for change. I think I'm quite cynical about like just our system as it is, but this experience has kind of led me to see that kind of like there's systems, but then there's also people, and you can have really great conversations with people and maybe get some movement that you might not have otherwise gotten if you just gave up and didn't do anything. So I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone in the flesh in DC, and continuing on with this, and just learning more from other fellows who have really amazing ideas. And I guess that's what I have to say.
Thank you so much to the three of you for sharing your stories and your struggles and your experience within the fellowship. I know that, everyone has such a different story, but that so often when we hear them all together, we start to see little bits of ourselves kind of reflected in them, and hear a little bit about, oh, it's not just me that's like struggling to access land, or it's not just me that's struggling to access markets, or, I think that is a really important piece of this as well. And to just let farmers know that, you're not alone, the struggle is real, and that there's so much work that needs to be done to make this system more just and equitable for everybody. I did see a question pop up in the comments. I'm happy to answer it, but I just wanted to open the floor if anyone had questions for Stony, Laura, or Madlock. I'm sure they'd be happy to speak to any of their experiences. Any questions for our fellows? No. And then the question that is in the chat from Liz, Elizabeth Henderson, I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but it was basically, do we endorse the efforts to counter corporate capture that has saddled us with cheap food policies that mean taxpayers pay for subsidies that largely go to the largest farms, while buyers, retailers, and processors do not pay prices that cover the full cost of production, as they had to do under the parity supply model system that ended completely with the 1996 Freedom to Fail Farm Bill. Do we endorse the efforts to counter these? Yes, I would say that we do. I don't think that we specifically address this issue within our land campaign or our Farm Bill platform. But as you heard from Charles's story, we approach these issues as extremely intersectional and acknowledge that while access to land might be a top issue for some folks, it's not everybody's top issue, and that there's lots of different pieces that are holding farmers back at the moment, and certainly competing against price parity is one of them. Yeah, Liz, do you want to follow up?
Yes, I would love to. I love the energy that you all have, and that you're training yourselves to go and speak to Congress and be good spokespeople for young farmers. And as Laura knows, I've been an admirer and supporter of her work since she was a teenager and decided that she was going to become a farmer, and I cheered her on. But it totally breaks my heart when young people finally get the resources to farm, start a farm, and go into it maybe 10 years and then quit because they cannot make a living at it. And until all of us get together and unite and attack the root causes of the system, we will get some crumbs, and that will help people stay in business. And that's really important. The things that you've mentioned, like Charles, limiting to $1 million, that's been a big issue that the National Sustainable Ag Coalition has fought for over many farm bills, to cap how much any individual farm can get in payments from the farm programs. So that would allow more money to be spent for more different farms or more programs. But the underlying cause is that prices do not cover the cost of production. So we're struggling endlessly in this rabbit cage or squirrel cage, whatever it is, and don't get anywhere because we're not in control. So I urge the National Young Farmers Coalition to really think carefully about making parity or some other way of forcing payments to cover cost of production to be one of your top priorities.
Thank you, Liz. I really appreciate you stepping in and talking about your work and sharing your passion for this. I feel like we're all addressing the top challenges that young farmers are facing. And for us, it feels like we acknowledge that there are farmers, aspiring farmers out there right now who would love to be farming, but are not able to without access to land and without affordable land access. And that's step one. And I hear what you're saying about struggling once you're on the land and trying to find price parity, trying to find fair cost for your food and struggling to keep up with the cost of production. But that only happens once you're on the land. And there are so many young farmers, especially farmers of color, who don't even have the opportunity to get onto the land. So I see our initiatives as being very hand in hand, and that we're all focused on the viability of the next generation of farmers, but that I think for us to focus on this issue, especially as it's a direct outcome from our 2022 survey, where so many farmers overwhelmingly said land access was their main challenge, that we're going to try keep it focused to this issue for this farm bill. Thank you. I also see that there's been another question that came in. Have there been any youth storytelling about learning to farm in the Farm Bill? I know there are more youth-based organizations like Vines, Madlock mentions the Youth Farm Project, Ithaca Children's Garden, trying to get younger generations growing food and access to those opportunities for free or low cost. Is the question, is there funding for youth learning programs in the Farm Bill?
Yes.
Okay. That is a great question, and I don't know the answer to it directly. I do know that one of the things we have pushed for in previous farm bills and in other bills is to see more peer learning and more mentorship programs available, and that money become available to wider networks of community-led organizations, and to be able to send that money to other places than where it traditionally goes, which is generally places like Cornell, to make sure that all farmers are being able to access that information and that kind of mentorship where they need it. But I don't know the exact answer to this, if there is funding that is going to the kinds of programming that that Charles mentioned. So I can look into it and follow up, but I'm not sure. Any other questions? Okay, so now we're going to do a quick little reflection. We have a worksheet, and I have them in both English and in Spanish. I'll share the links now. The first one that I'm sharing is the English version. The second one will be the Spanish language version, and it will prompt you to make a copy as you open it so that you have this to work on directly. So as we said, we really value the voices of farmers as their own advocates in this process, and we think that farmers are their own best experts and will speak to whatever the issues that are facing them most eloquently. So we've created these work pages to kind of help you think through where your challenge is when it comes to our platform and how they intersect. So if you want to open this up and take a look, we'll give it 10 minutes for folks to be able to kind of reflect on what you heard today as it relates to our platform, and then also to fill in and start to kind of think through what your main talking points would be if you were in an advocacy space and you were meeting with a member of Congress like Charles talked about, or if you were going to be sitting down to write an op-ed like Stony mentioned. How would you frame your story, and how would you relate it to some of the issues that we've been talking about? So we'll take 10 minutes, we'll come back at 10:55, and yeah, let me know if any questions pop up in the meantime. When we come back, we're going to break into some small breakout rooms so that we can talk about any thoughts or questions that are coming up for you all. Thank you. Hi, Joy. I see your comment in the chat. We're doing individual reflections right now. I shared some links to a worksheet a minute ago, and I will do so again right now. Everyone is just taking a minute to think about their land access challenges and how it relates to the land access campaign platform that I was speaking about earlier. If you take a look at the worksheet and think that there's like, you missed too much and don't have anything to add, don't worry about it. And we'll be back in 4 minutes to finish our conversation. So the first link that I just shared is in English. The second one is in Spanish. Hi to everyone who just joined in. We're doing individual reflections for the moment, and we'll be back together as a group in 2 minutes. Okay, let's start coming back together. If you could just give me like a thumbs up or anything that you're kind of at a place where you're ready to change gears, and we're gonna break into some breakout rooms and kind of use what we were just working on with our personal stories as they relate to land access challenges or you know, any of the challenges that you're facing as a beginning farmer, trying to build your business to something that is viable and sustainable. We're going to break into breakout rooms. And if you would like to be in a bilingual space where Spanish is being spoken, you can stay in the main room. Otherwise, when the prompt comes up for you to enter a breakout room, you will just enter the breakout room, and we'll have about 15 minutes for everyone to discuss. And I think, you know, the main things to think about when we're talking are just what has come up for you. Where do you see yourself in this campaign? Are there questions that came up for you? Is there anything that you would envision if you were in a meeting with a member of Congress or somebody who has power that you would like to really highlight about your own story? And maybe take a practice run telling, you know, a 2-minute version of your land story. So we're going to go ahead and break into breakout rooms, and then we will come back for a final kind of goodbye together.
Thanks, Erica. I've got the breakout rooms ready. Just reiterating what Erica said, if you do want to be part of a bilingual breakout, don't accept my invitation to go to the breakout room, and you'll just stay right here in this room. So I'm going to open them up now. And Erica, did you want to go to a room or did you want to stay in the main room?
Oh, Erica will stay here.
Okay, I'm going to shuffle the breakouts just a little bit. Okay.
Hola, Frances. Are you here to talk about your experience as a young farmer?
Hello. I don't have much to share in terms of land access story because I farm like through a nonprofit that does agriculture in the city of Albany, New York. So I've fortunately just been able to do the education and farming programs through them for about a couple of years now. So I've never really stepped my foot into trying to get land access.
Very cool.
I'm very interested in learning from people.
Yeah, well, in that case, do you want to go into a breakout room with some of the other young farmers and just hear about their...
Yeah, sure.
Katie, are you able to facilitate that?
Yes. Let's see. Frances, you should have received an invite to join breakout room 3.
Oh yeah. Oops, I accidentally hit not now on that. Would you be able to resend that invite?
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna move you to an empty room and then back to the right room because I'm not sure how to take it back. So just a second.
Gotcha. Join room 2. Okay.
And then I'll move you to room 3 because room 2 is actually empty.
Okay.
Okay. Ah, you're back. Didn't work. Let's try it again. Sorry. Okay.
Did he make it?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have 2 breakout rooms of 3.
Okay.
After things shifted.
Great. Yeah.
Just give me a shout when you want me to close them.
Yeah, I guess at 10 minutes, maybe instead of 15, just that we have 5 minutes to say goodbye.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Let me make sure I have my. Peter, I'm very impressed how quickly you got this translation done. Thank you so much.
And Erica, if you need a couple extra minutes, it's totally fine to go over 11:15 if you need to.
Okay. No, I don't think we'll need to. I think if everyone has 10 minutes, it should be enough for them to just introduce themselves and kind of share back anything that they're thinking. And then, yeah, I really just have a few like how to get involved pieces to share afterwards.
Jessica, I was thinking we should share with Teddy about Charles's advocacy around subsidizing CSA shares. Could be interesting for our farm share
Sure.
program that he's working on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just gonna run to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Katie, I think we can start calling people back now if you're there.
Great. I'll close the rooms. I think it takes 60 seconds for everyone to come back.
Okay.
Hello. Is anyone still here?
Yeah. Hi, how are you? No, we're just waiting for everybody to come back.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. I think it takes a couple of seconds for the countdown of doom to suck everyone back into the main room.
Here, everyone comes.
Hey, everyone, welcome back. I wanted to open the floor if there were any takeaways, anything that came up in your breakout rooms that you wanted to share. Please feel free to unmute. Anything that was surprising that you heard in other people's stories that reflected your own, or something that was completely unique and you'd never encountered before?
I could jump in for our group. I was with Laura, so it was the two of us and then Magena, and we had a nice discussion about because Magena lives in Brooklyn, correct me if I'm wrong, is involved in a community garden space in Brooklyn, and like just was sharing about, you know, the developers putting up buildings to block out the sun, and like it just led to a nice discussion. Also just like she had traveled to Cuba with like as a grad student, like so it was also kind of like globally like there's frameworks for policy that values like urban and peri-urban agriculture, so that it's actually like a significant, like I feel like in the United States maybe we would think of it as like a marginal thing, but actually like there's potential for it to feed people. Like my partner lived in a place, or like a Victory Garden in the Bay Area, like in the 40s, like it was developed into a like this horrible big box store kind of plaza, but it used to feed the community back in the 40s. And so it was just an interesting discussion about like using urban space also, and land access in the urban setting.
Cool. That sounds really neat. Francis, are you raising your hands to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say similarly, I was surprised to learn that the three of us that were in our breakout group were all urban farmers as well. So that was cool to connect with a couple other people doing similar work across the state.
Yeah, urban farmers for the win. You know, the challenges of land access in an urban space is definitely something that I feel really passionately personally about, because I was a former urban farmer in Brooklyn, and my farm was like pretty much destroyed when we had a like a 10-year lease with the city, but they had said that they would give us a year-long lead if they were going to be developing the space, which it had lapsed during this was in around 2008 during the financial crisis. And in the end, we had like 3 months to vacate the land. And like on the last day, I was like ripping plants out of the ground and like passing them to people on the street as they walked by, because it was just so horrible. So I definitely like feel that struggle really personally. And yeah, I think that, you know, there's so much that could be done on the local level, but finding solutions on the federal level have been really elusive and difficult. So yeah, I hope that that was a fruitful conversation. You got to commiserate and maybe share some ideas for how things could change.
Yeah, a little bit. It's hard to say much in like 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
we got some connection again.
Good. Well, I do want to share one last piece with you all, which is that, well, I have two things to share actually. One is a template. So I'm glad that we all got a chance to practice sharing our stories today and just thinking a little bit about how our stories interconnect with this platform and how we see ourselves in the next Farm Bill. This is a template that we might use if we were sending a letter to a member of Congress or really any elected official. It could be at the local level, a city council member as well. And there's a framework there for talking about our platform, but also a space for you to practice sharing your own story. And we use these types of templates a lot. We have something that's called a phone to action, where we'll send out text alerts and we'll send out emails, and it will automatically know your elected official. And all you have to do is fill in your information. It will go directly to the person who can hopefully help us make some change. So here is a practice run, and you're all welcome to use this, you know, however you want. Think about the pieces that are most important to you and send it if you want, or just use it as a piece of practice. The second thing that I'm going to share is a sign up for that P2A. So as we get closer to the Farm Bill, we're going to send out a few opportunities like this for you to contact your member of Congress and reach out and share your story, support the work that we're doing, and hopefully see that $2.5 billion investment in the Farm Bill this year. So you can sign up there by plugging in your info, and you will not get spammed. You will not have your information shared. It will just probably, maybe you'll receive the first one sometime in March while we're all in DC. That will give you an opportunity to kind of chime in, and then maybe a couple more as we get closer to the Farm Bill. So yeah, any final questions, or otherwise, you know, it's been so nice sharing this time with you all, and thank you to our farm fellows who got to share their stories today.
Yeah, thank you, Erica, Stony, Charles, and Laura. This has been really interesting. I loved hearing your stories, and I feel like I took ample notes and have some ideas to think about some more. So thank you. I'm just going to put really quickly in the chat one last thing. This is a, oops, I lost my document. This is a link to an evaluation. Your feedback on how this workshop went for you will help us to plan for the future. So I'm just going to pop that really quick in the chat so you can open it up, and then we'll close out for the session. Jessica, do you have it pulled up? I don't know where it went. Oh, I found it. Oh, thank you.
Oh, I just put it in there.
Thanks so much.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
You too. Bye.